Some men are men of the cloth.
Jesus Christ.
But for some of those men, that cloth is wound up really tight around their fist and they use it to cause blunt force trauma. So this is a story of Fighting Bob Shuler. Did you know anything about Fighting Bob?
Reverend Bob Shuler?
Reverend Fighting Bob Shuler. He's not a boxer.
I know.
He was a reverend who used his position of power and gift with words to cause verbal blunt force trauma to most public figures in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's how I know.
Yeah. So he was born Robert Pierce Shuler, August 4th, 1880 in Comers Rock, Virginia.
Which one's the state? Which one's the description of the state?
The Rock was just it's how you knew you were there.
Dwayne Johnson, Virginia?
Comers the Rock, Virginia. From what I read, Comers Rock sounds like everything you expect a place like Comers Rock, Virginia to be like.
It's a perfect place to leave?
Yeah. It was just white, poor, and Protestant. That's what their city flag said.
That was my nickname in high school.
That was my bio.
That was my Twitter bio.
So his dad was a Methodist minister and his mom was named Rosa Elvira. That was what she was best known for.
You're best known for having those two
for
names.
Your name. Some people know me by my name.
You might know me from my name.
Here's a good name for you. His uncle's name was Pow Delp.
Spell it.
First name P-O-W.
Like a prisoner of war.
Maybe that was his nickname. His last name was D-E-L-P.
Powdelp.
Powdelp.
It sounds like if you get hit twice by Batman.
I know, he was written by Bob Kane. This insulated religious upbringing made him grow up believing deeply in manifest destiny and that God created America for himself to be enjoyed by white Europeans. Yeah, it's all fun and games until we find out what Powdelp believed in.
It's all fun and games until they're looking up real estate in L.A. You're like, Jesus, I want to bring that stuff over here.
By the way, Powdelp is in episode 9. This led him to attend the Emory and Henry College in Virginia, and then he got ordained at age 23 when he started preaching around Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Texas, until 1920 when he decided to move his wife and 6 kids to Los Angeles.
No room.
Sorry, occupied.
What year was that? Sorry.
1920. So he saw Los Angeles he described it as the only city in the nation in which white American Christian idealism still predominates.
Okay.
Which leads me to believe he had no idea what Hollywood was at the time.
He must have only stayed in Los Feliz, like what most people do when they come to LA. No culture, and they just stay on like Franklin.
Well, he loved going to the UCB. We knew that because he liked white Protestants. So he came to LA and took the job as the Reverend at the Trinity Methodist Church that used to be at 1201 South Flower Street, like a couple blocks away from Staples Center. And it's the parking lot of Hooters or something now. So the church had been around as it was destined. Yeah, let's do the sign of the cross. But when you go across, boy, do you have to go across. The only sign of the cross that takes 2 hands. So the church had been around since 1870, but they were deeply in debt in 1920 and they were losing their congregation. So Shuler had developed a reputation as being one of those fire and brimstone type preachers. Yeah. So he would scream and shout and spit and everyone loved it. Yeah. So it was a popular style of preaching.
Before rock bands started.
Yeah, this was all you had. He was so cool.
Leather jacket.
His white collar was so tight, you could almost see his Adam's apple. It was really popular. So the church wanted to boost their ticket sales and it worked because, the people will come to see this. So his congregation, they hired him. The congregation started to grow and grow and grow. But he wasn't just there to draw a crowd. He was here to protect the white Christian Eden that was Los Angeles at the time, according to him. So he called himself one of God's watchmen on the walls of the city. So he took it upon himself there used to be walls around Los Angeles also. He took it upon himself to use his influence over his growing congregation to call out everything and everyone he thought was wrong in the city. This is what you know him for. This included, but was not limited to, jazz, Catholics, the Knights of Columbus, because they were Catholics, and they eventually sued him for libel, but he won. What he called the Jew-owned industry of Hollywood.
Come on.
That's their bio. The Los Angeles Public Library he hated.
Wow, really? What, socialism?
They offered socialism and they offered books with liberal ideas.
I want this man's head on a stick. Go ahead.
It would still draw a crowd if it was on that stick. The river sticks. So the YMCA he hated because they had Saturday night dances that occasionally went past midnight into Sunday, which was the Sabbath. So you can't be dancing on the Sabbath. He also hated Amy Semple McPherson, who he probably hated her most of all.
I remember when I did her story, that was a name that kept coming up. And I'm like, who is this?
Who's this man?
Who's this rock and roller?
Who's this fiery young reverend?
Who's the white little Richard?
So he called Amy Semple McPherson a hypnotist and said that she was he said that she was duping good people and was too wild and sensual, and what she was doing.
So was he.
He wasn't sensual.
So no, okay, but neither was she. That's what I meant to say. She wasn't.
I don't know, because she was a woman. Anything a woman does was sensual to him.
She had short hair. Okay, go ahead.
Stop, please. Slow down, Greg. He said that what she was doing was just as bad as bootlegging.
I'm not going to argue with that. Which is good,
because bootlegging is not that bad. So in moving away from her, in 1927, there was a show. She's making me too sensual. In 1927, there was a show going on at the Follies Theater theater called the Hot Mama Revue.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, of course, he went to check it out, and then immediately he told the police chief what was going on, who then raided the theater and shut down the show.
What year was it?
1927.
I think I know the police chief. Go ahead.
I might know the guy responsible
Yeah,
for
I might
this. So
know.
the 27 hot mamas that were in this show were brought to court for indecent exposure, but they were let off free. And they made a movie about this called 12 Horny Men.
It's 12 vignettes.
Courtroom After Dark was the alternate title. Bob Shuler had a magazine that he humbly titled Bob Shuler's Magazine. And if you couldn't already guess the sort of stuff that is in this magazine, the only issue I could find online, the front page of it said...
Jews.
Yeah, he had what I guess you could call a poem titled Is It Booze? And it went like this.
Read it in Bob Shuler's voice.
What is the issue? Is it booze? With 10 million Americans out of work, is it booze? With 100,000 little homeowners in California losing their homes, is it booze? With one public official making a private fortune of $500 million in 8 years, while the middle-class American is plunged into bankruptcy, is it booze? With the cost of government mounting 300% in 10 years, is it booze? Indeed, what is this issue? Is it booze? That was the front page, just on white.
That's so funny.
Of course, white.
Yeah. Why would it be any other color? White on white.
If you're white enough, you can read this. But yeah, just ridiculous stuff.
That's adorable.
But there was also, I digitally flipped through it, scroll, I guess you would call it. There was an ad in the middle of that article to buy baby alligators. They were $1 each or $2.50 for 3.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Baby alligators. Is it booze?
People are buying alligators and they're turning up crocodiles. Is it booze? Is it booze? Is it Jews? But he wasn't just against booze, Jews, and hot mamas, which is...
Your review.
So I'm bringing that to the Follies Theater this December, just in time for Hanukkah. Booze, Jews, and hot mamas. The Daniel Zaffron story.
It's really mothers, though.
They have a fever. So most importantly, aside from that sort of stuff, he was railing against social and political issues. You know, we can't offend this guy, but he was a leader in the local progressive movement, which sounds good, but was really a mixed bag.
Yeah.
He was furious when a mob of KKK guys killed 2 black men, but at the same time, he openly supported the KKK.
Yeah, I'm sure that was like, we're supposed to send him to trial. I'm sure there's something like
Let him get convicted first, and then we
we'll
can lynch him.
Yeah, there's ways to do this, a bureaucracy to this.
Yeah,
we need the judge to get paid. We need everyone else to get, we need the police to get paid.
Well, he did not like the police. he hated most city officials. He called them criminals who spoil paradise. In 1923, he heard rumors that LAPD chief Louis Oakes was a playboy and a drunk, so he followed him one night and saw him living up to that reputation, and then preached against him so hard to his followers that Oakes was soon fired and denied pension. So it wasn't just allegations he was flinging at people. He was actually making a difference in the city, and like I said, some of that was actually good stuff, like getting rid of corrupt cops and things like that. He got rid of a lot of LAPD corruption, actually. He got a lot of the LAPD protected brothels and gambling dens shut down. He was very outspoken against the very corrupt Mayor George Cryer, who also sued him for libel. Shuler was head of the ministerial union in LA, so he would often lead groups of ministers and reporters directly to the offices of the mayor and other people in City Hall unannounced, and he would call them out for their corruption in front of everybody. Jeez. The biggest leap he made, though, was in 1927 when he raised $25,000 to start his own radio station, KGEF, which stood for Keeping God Ever First.
You could have titled that better, but then again, you could have just called it...
KKKF.
Yeah. Bob Shuler Magazine was a great title. Why stray from that?
K-Bob.
K-Bob.
So now this meant he could not just reach whoever could fit into his church, but also whoever had a radio within however many miles of Los Angeles.
Alex Jones fans.
Wait till you hear the similarities here.
Okay.
The station had religious conversations and hymns and all that sort of thing, but the big show was Bob's sermons. They were fiery and like he was known for, and they were riddled with accusations and lies and Hollywood gossip. So he would just pounce on any rumor he heard and call these people out and attack them to no end. He accused the city health department of forcing women to get medical examinations only from men. He accused the president of USC of teaching evolution, or as he called it, monkey business.
Oh, that is the best title for anti-evolution.
I know. I was looking up, like, is that really which came first?
Yeah. It was actually a bunch of monkeys tried to open up a bank. It was original thing.
It was all these monkeys. They were jumping on a bed and he was against them. One of them fell down. Broke his head.
I can support this. Is this the liberal America you want?
Is this the American Catholics want?
And we evolved from that.
As his kids are jumping on his head. In 1929, during the rape trial of Alexander Pantages, which we talked about a while ago, he started saying on his show that Pantages was bribing the jurors, which helped influence the guilty verdict against him. But after the trial, the Bar Association went after Shuler, and he got sentenced to 30 days in jail for contempt of court. And he couldn't have been happier about that, because now he was a martyr.
Yeah.
He loved it.
Once you get kicked off of YouTube, you become a martyr.
Wait till you hear.
Are you going to leave the Alex Alex Jones? Because I don't want to hear about it.
Well, this man, he grew up to be...
This is the Pinocchio version of him, but when he becomes a real boy, becomes Alex Jones.
I want to be a real Catholic. When he got out of prison, he bragged that he got butter instead of margarine in there and that they made him a specially tailored prison suit complete with a tie. So it was a lot of hurtful gossip he was spewing, but again, he was also right about the local government being corrupt.
I mean, okay, you're right. You're aware
You can't defend him.
You can be awful and still right about something.
Well, here's a perfect example. He helped get Mayor Cryer kicked out of office, but also helped get John Clinton Porter elected in 1929, a man who had been in the KKK.
Yeah, he was a teetotaler. That's why he probably liked him.
Yeah.
Porter was also like, is this booze? And that's how they became friends.
I wanted to ask you something. Is this booze? Someone who's going to come up later in the show, he helped get Two Gun Davis fired. He was so popular, he managed to grow his congregation to 6,000 people, making it the biggest in Southern California at the time. And he was also a great promoter of things. He had gimmicks, like one Mother's Day, he promised a gift to the mom who brought the most children to church. And the winner who brought her 7 sons was a Mrs. Hahn, mother of Kenneth Hahn.
Really?
Yeah, so he was there. Yeah, descendant of Shuler. But his real power was in this radio show. At his height, he had 600,000 listeners, which made him one of the country's first big radio ministers. They said that his word could influence the vote of 60,000 people in any given election, which he proved in the 1928 presidential election when he turned a large part of the city against Al Smith because he said he was a Catholic and he part of the Pope's plan to murder Protestants in their sleep, so they decided not to vote for him.
I mean, it was true. Catholics. That's what we do. We all have a knife for it.
We keep it in our reliquary. You think this is one of an apostle's bones. It's actually my knife that I'm going to murder a Protestant with. Al Smith ended up losing that election to Herbert Hoover, who shortly after started the Great Depression. So
they started it. I got an
throw
idea.
the switch.
I've got this crazy idea, guys. Tents as far as you can see. Dust. Everywhere.
I'll vote for that, as long as I don't get killed in my sleep by the Pope.
A businessman standing on the 53rd floor of a building.
Think of the views. But
is this views?
It is weird to think how a guy spewing this hateful, mostly wrong stuff on the radio can influence an election and change things for the worse. So the LA...
Glad that's over.
We were so naive back then.
God, we're so foolish.
So the LA Times feared him, and he said that he held all records for attacks upon everybody, everything. The newspapers covered him endlessly. The amount of coverage he got in the papers was rivaled only by Amy McPherson and Clara Bow.
Clara Bow.
Ooh, hello. Hello. I'd like to see those two in a headline. Here's a headline. Yummy. The newspapers are the ones who gave him his nickname Fighting Bob.
Yeah.
So the attention, again, that the media gave him is what enabled him and gave him his power, and the public loved him, racist and all, because he was a straight talker, which sounds so familiar. So like it or not, Shuler was a leader in fighting for a non-corrupt LA government, and there was no stopping all the racism that came along with that because he already had the power. But all good witch hunts must come to an end, and they usually end the same way, by calling a wrong person a witch. So eventually he accused his partner in not crime, Reverend Gustav Brigleb.
Love that white name.
He accused him of taking donations from the notorious Charles Crawford.
The gray wolf?
Yep, so something that Shuler said he would sooner baptize a skunk than take donations from him, which he did live on air.
Are skunks not baptized?
Are we not Catholic?
We are many things. We are trash eaters, but are we Catholic?
Is the Pope skunk or whatever that saying is? Pretty soon after these accusations...
one more time, not to interrupt, but what was the last guy's name? Gustav?
Brigleb. Not long after this, he had made one too many powerful enemies, and the tide started to turn against him. And in November 1931, he had his broadcasting license revoked by the Federal Radio Commission, who said he was not operating in the public's interests. So this was a very controversial move, and the ACLU even fought this decision in the Supreme Court, but he was not given his license back. But this and what Amy McPherson was doing sparked the government to keep a closer eye on the ideas that were being disseminated over the radio. But this just prompted Fighting Bob into wanting something bigger than just running a church.
I want to own the airwaves.
I want to be a radio. He wanted to become president of the United States.
Oh my God.
So in 1932, he ran for the U.S. Senate as a prohibitionist, and thank God he lost, but he still got 564,000 votes. Supposedly, he was so upset with L.A. when he lost that he put a curse on the city, who some say caused the Long Beach earthquake the next year.
I can't prove him wrong. I can't say, no, that wasn't the curse.
Was it booze? This derailed him pretty badly, and it wasn't until 1942 that he tried again, but on a smaller scale, running for the 12th Congressional District on a campaign that accused everyone in Washington of being drunk, but he lost yet again, and with that,
What of it?
Yeah, so what?
So what?
Burp. He lost the last of his popularity. In 1953, he retired and put his son Bob Jr. in charge, Pacifist Bob, as they called him. So he put him in charge of the church, which eventually got torn down in 1982. Fighting Bob Shuler died September 11th, 1965
Conspiracy.
in Carmel Valley. Was it an inside booze? So he died in Carmel Valley. He's buried in Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, but his legacy should best be remembered as always vote in every election.